Hello, everybody. This is your host, Katie speaking. I wanted to hop on here real quick for a moment before we officially start today's episode to loop back around. I've finished recording the podcast and listened back, and I want to loop back here to the beginning and set a little bit more of a foundation for the territory we're about to walk into. And you'll get to listen along, but a few days ago I sat down, hit record, and kind of just went for it. I kind of just went for it from this space of, frustration and perhaps an eagerness to really guide us into this space that I know is really important. More than that, I know I want to say one of the most important things that we can be doing at this point in time. Certainly not the only thing. Definitely not the only thing to be doing right now. But one of the more important things to be giving some attention to be giving some of our time or energy to, is this willingness to be with those parts of the human experience that aren't exactly pleasant and that, can sometimes even be a little bit painful to look at, to be with. And it's because of this that we have a tendency in our world to shy away from these spaces, to look away from these spaces, to actively push down when these sorts of experiences present themselves in our bodies, in our day-to-day lives. And it's this very habit in our modern world to shy away from these spaces that I truly see as one of the underlying causes of just the mass amount of pain and suffering in our own lives, on the global stage. It's this deep irony that, the more averse we are to those dark aspects of our lives, the more we push them away, the more friction is caused, the more they're allowed to fester and to show up in our lives in unskillful ways. So today's episode is really an invitation here to start to open the door to being more fully present. Maybe that means spending more time, or maybe it's not really so much a time variable, but really just maybe it's beginning with a very short time, but your full attention coming into an awareness of these sorts of spaces that are present in every single person on this planet. And there is one more thing I want to say here at the beginning, that this podcast gets to be released at the very beginning of December. December being this really complicated, right? This really complicated time of the year where, yes, on the one hand, we get to fill our lives with all these different opportunities for joy. Allow that joyful spirit to come into our lives, to fill us with light and love and all those good feelings that we want. And also, there's a big part of this season, for some people, really a huge part of this season, that is a time of going in deeper, right? As much as our society tries to make this time of year about the holidays, and as amazing as an opportunity that is to bring joy into our lives, one real life aspect of this time of year, happening as we're moving into the winter solstice. It's this time of year where the earth, the land, is going to sleep, is turning inward. And it's this time of year where, as nature really can show us, it is this time of year for rest, for deepening in, and that can be in conflict with some of the activities that might be going on in your life. So just a moment here up front to set the stage for this, shine some light on the fact that as much as December is a time from a societal perspective to bring in light and love and joy and all those high vibe feelings, it is also a time of year to really go within. And when we go within, what often happens is this need to deal with those darker, heavier, unpleasant, painful. I'm throwing out some different words here. Some might resonate with you, some might not. Constrictive, that sort of feeling. So again, just a moment here to set the stage. With that, enough building of this episode, inviting you to continue to listen along, jumping in right now. Here we go. Hello, and welcome to the Upward Slopes podcast. I'm your host, Katie Hemphill, and welcome. Welcome to you, whoever you are, whether this is your first episode, whether this is the first time having any sort of interaction with me, or whether you've been around here for a while. I welcome you into this episode 3 here today as we're continuing to get the ball rolling here in a space where we get to focus on what it means, what it really means to look out on a brighter future for our lives, for communities, for the world we live in. That is, we get to look out on where we want to be going and to learn better ways to be in action. That is, to take physical steps, being in action as we call in that world that we envision. And it's in this space that I teach that we get to enter into this world of embodied living and collective healing. That is a space where we get to get out of our heads, get out of that territory that is so caught up in the programming of the ways of the world, a world that, as I think we can all recognize and agree, is quite dark and chaotic in this way that is unpleasant and often painful and needs to transform, is transforming, is already going through a transformation. Because, to be totally honest, the way I see it, this world that we've created is not going to last. It cannot last. It's not sustainable. The way we are doing things in this world, the way we are spending our time, the way we are spending our energy, it's destructive. It's inherently destructive in a way that can no longer be sustained. Yes, we've done things this way for a while, and they've worked. It's bared fruit in a lot of beautiful ways. It's brought forth so much greatness into this world. And also, it's now killing us. It's causing deep, deep harm physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That's on a human being level, an individual level. And also, as we all know and can clearly recognize, it's destroying our planet. It's destroying the ecosystems around us and that we are part of. And it's taking us in a direction that leads nowhere good. And it's at this point in time that most of us can recognize things have to change. Things are going to have to change, and they're going to have to change drastically if we as individuals, if we as a collective, if we as a planet are going to get to continue to move forward, to continue this journey on a large time scale. Woo, what an introduction there, going a bit darker and heavier than I had intended, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with these days putting reality as it presents itself right in front of our faces. And if you're someone who, tends to live your life in disconnection from this reality because it's too much and you don't want to handle it, or maybe you just don't want that darkness, that heaviness in your life, I get it. Like, this is big. It's big to go into this territory. And also, we have to go here. And that doesn't mean you have to do what I did and completely change your life trajectory and fully immerse myself in it routinely. But what the invitation is, what I will present to you today, is to maybe step a foot or dip a toe into this space that is opening to, okay, can I give myself a few moments each day to get out of my head, to get out of the story that I've created in my life because it serves me and my family and it's working for now. Can we spend maybe 5 minutes being in the collective energy as it truly is? So with that, an invitation here. I'll give you some further guidance here in a moment, but for this moment, perhaps stepping into whatever is invoked in you as I speak words to the collective energy right now. Maybe that's in your community, maybe that's in the state or country you live in, maybe that's globally, maybe it's all of the above all at once. What is invoked in you as I say these words? And just a little bit more guidance here. If you find yourself getting caught up in a grand story and you find that that story is taking you away out of this present moment, maybe take a moment to feel your feet on the floor, take a few breaths down in your body, and return to a practice that is here, grounded into this present moment. What is invoked in you? What thoughts come through your mind? What sensations arise in your body as I speak to the collective energy, the collective reality at this point in time? Just giving you this moment here in silence. And if you want more time, press that pause button, hang out here longer, but continuing onward, as I mentioned briefly there, I've made the decision to continue to spend an awful lot of time immersed in these energies that are dark, are heavy, are painful. To make this very concrete, here on this land that I live on, this land that has just been ravaged by forest fire, there's a very concrete question that I ask myself when I'm going to go for a hike or a trail run. And the question is, do I choose to go run on the burn scar? Or do I choose to run through the ponderosas that survive? Right there, very tangibly. Where am I choosing to spend my time? In life that has been deeply impacted by destruction, or in life that is flourishing? Do I choose to turn on the news and immerse myself in the dark happenings elsewhere in the world? Do I choose to go do something that fills me with joy? There are all these moments in our day where we're making these choices. Where is our attention? Where is our energy going? And I find that it's the most important question that we can be asking ourselves in any single moment. Where is my attention? Where is my energy? And just holding this awareness. Am I putting it on something that's heavy, that's dark? Or am I putting it on something that invokes lightness, expansion, joy? Knowing, of course, that any one particular experience is going to have a flavor of both, right? I choose to go walk through the burn scar, and it brings forth this heaviness, this sorrow. And also, I get to be taken over by joy when I walk by wildflowers, or the best, my favorite, is when I enter into the patches of trees that us humans chose to regrow. There are people in my community who chose to go replant ponderosas, and I've gotten to grow up with these ponderosas, and now they're getting so big, and some of them are creating their own pine cones at this point in the season. And so just knowing that at any moment in time, there's both and. So again, returning to this invitation, if you're someone who maybe goes through life trying to turn away from the dark, an invitation to just give it a few moments every day, opening yourself to what's present here, what wants to be seen, to be heard, to be felt, to be known in the realm that's dark, that's heavy, that we don't have that natural desire to want to invoke in our lives. So there's that. There's the invitation there, the simple invitation to enter into these spaces. And from here, the conversation gets to continue, now that we're opening this door, that is doing so with greater skill. Because this is something that's all too common in our world today, right? Is the flip side of this, is this sort of craving that happens to be immersed in these dark spaces, right? There's a part of our humanity that loves these dark places. We watch horror movies, we watch thrillers for fun sometimes, right? And there's that part of us that, maybe turns on the news because the way that the dark aspects of humanity are playing out in our world, the way those tend to get shared through platforms such as the news or social media are ways that release dopamine in our bodies, right? They ping us in a way that actually brings some satisfaction, right? They're getting at something that's very, very intentional, right? This is very strategic, right? Big platforms are successful because they have learned to hack humanity, to bring us news, to bring us information in ways that elicit something within us that keep us coming back. So again, there's that craving, and that craving turns into habit. So as I speak to this invitation to spend time bringing your attention, bringing your energy, bringing your focus to those more difficult, crunchy, dark, painful parts of humanity, how is it that you're doing it? Are you doing it so that you get a ping of dopamine from watching the news and it eliciting something in you that maybe isn't the most skillful? Or can we find ways to do it that allow our humanity to shine through, that allow us to be present as a collective? So here's a specific practice. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and depending on when you listen to this, that's going to differ a little bit, but there's something constant, right? There's something constant in our human existence, and it is war. It's war. From the point at which I'm recording this, there are multiple wars going on in the world. There's a new one that actually has ancient roots, that has once again risen up to the surface, and it's in this mess that I see sides formed and people getting angry and upset and throwing slanders and other forms of violence at other people that aren't even in that part of this world. And it's this terrible, terrible space to be in witness to. But it's cutting through this. It's cutting through all the shit we put on top of it and going directly to the experience itself of people on the ground having bombs dropped on their heads, going to sleep every night not knowing, am I going to wake up in the morning? Is my daughter going to wake up in the morning? Do we need to flee? Can we flee? If we flee, where can we go? So a moment, no names, no constructs that humanity have put on top of it, but this experience itself. It's a moment to be there. And as you're there, being there, as you know that you are fully grounded, held so fully here in this place that you stand in your part of the world, in your own sovereign self, being with the experiences of others that share this planet with you at this moment in time. And in this space, simply being witness to what is it that is invoked in you? What comes alive in you? What feelings, what sensations? Being mindful of the thoughts that arise, being witness to them, but not getting caught up in them, not letting them take you away out of the present moment, staying in the present moment, staying grounded in all that's alive here in this moment, and knowing, of course, if at any point in time anything becomes too much, you are completely free to detach yourselves from this practice. You are your own sovereign self. You have your own free will, your own choice to move into this only as far as you want, to take yourself out of it partway, entirely, if need be. Okay, so all of us now coming out of the practice, really feeling your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair, what's ever relevant to you with that. Finding your breath, maybe shaking it out a little bit. Maybe you need to stand up and move around. Maybe you need to press pause, go find somewhere where you can be alone and cry it out. But staying here, present in your body as you come into this point in space, this point in time that is you in your own body, in your part of the world. If you need a little bit more, you can, give yourself a hug, run your hands across your skin, really feel into the sensation that's alive in your body. So when you're ready, continuing on moving forward, because we do want to move forward, right? We don't want to get stuck here. We don't want to get stuck in this realm that is being pulled down into the darkness. Where we do want to go, is the next question. That is, bringing our minds on board here. Like, what does this mean? Now that you've felt into the full experience of bringing your consciousness into this sort of space, it sometimes helps to ask yourself, like, what does it mean to have just had this experience? Is there an action that you want to take? Do you want to take it now? Do you want to consider when you can take it in the future? Or maybe it's too much for your mind right now. Maybe there is no sense or meaning to be made of that. And just knowing that that's so perfectly fine. Meaning drops in at different points in our lives. And another, I think, pitfall of our modern world is that we crave meaning out of every experience right away. And sometimes we receive that, and sometimes in that receiving, it's useful. And a lot of times, the meaning that is best made is going to come at a future time. So with this practice, walking out of this practice, knowing that that's really the full invitation to spend time in these spaces. Spend time in these spaces, bringing your full consciousness there as you stay grounded as your own sovereign self. Grounded in your body as you bring your attention to these spaces, letting whatever needs to be invoked, to be released, to be moved through you, being in witness to this. Then moving out of this practice, knowing that there might be meaning to be made, there might be action to be taken. And also, it might be the case that where that moment takes you, right, the next breadcrumb on this trail, isn't going to be received for some time. So with that, I took us into what could have been a pretty powerful practice there. And, just being completely honest here, there's a part of my brain right now that's kind of like slapping me around a little bit. Like, Katie, is that really the most skillful thing to like take us right into the darkest part of humanity right now? And I probably lost some of you, and I have to recognize that, like, that's okay. That's okay, because those of you that are still here, right? There's something alive. There's something alive, and it's awakening. It's awakening in even fuller force in humanity that things are not okay. And it's no longer okay to accept the fact that things are not okay, right? I've heard this story over and over and over again. That's like, yeah, Katie, things are bad right now, but things have always been bad. That's the story of humanity. Things have always been bad. There's always dark things that we have to deal with, and we just do our best and go on with our lives. And like, yeah, there's so much truth to that. There's so much validity in that. And also, I really, truly see us at an inflection point that brings opportunity to, as so much so much darkness keeps arising in our own lives on a world stage that it's time. It's time to actually look directly at these things that we've pushed away for a long time. We've pushed them away because we have our own fears and we have our own needs and we have our own desires, and there isn't always space in our lives to bring into our lives what is alive for the collective. But what if we had an opportunity right now? What if we had an opportunity, now that we have the technology to know, like, what is really truly alive? What is truly alive right now in Palestine, in Israel, in the Congo? What is really alive in the forests around the world as they're burning down, on the shorelines of the world as they're getting flooded? What is really alive? We have the technology and the ability now to have this awareness, to be in witness in these ways. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time that we do learn to cultivate a skill, because again, it is a skill to be able to stay grounded in our own selves, in our own lives, and also to bring on what is alive as the collective. So just sitting with that for a moment, and again, just, knowing when I use that phrase, sitting with that for a moment, meaning, let it percolate through you. Let it move you. Let it invoke thoughts, energies, sensations, feelings, emotions. Not getting caught up in any one, not letting it take you away out of the moment, but being witness to what is alive, being witness to all that is alive, because in any one moment, there's so much that is alive in your internal landscape. And it might be worth spending some more time here, putting some more words to this point that we do have free will as I see it, or maybe we don't, maybe it's just an illusion, but we'll table that for now, assuming we have free will, knowing that you have choice. You have choice about how much time it is that you put your attention on the collective and how much time you put your attention on your own direct life. Alrighty, friends. Is that okay? Can I call you guys friends? I feel like we've very quickly here gone into some pretty deep places. So with that, I'm listening back through this audio that I recorded last week, and the fact is that we're only halfway through what I recorded, but at this point, I'm really feeling complete, and that in this space today, we got to really get straight to the heart of a matter, not diving in too terribly deep. I really did hold a lot of intention today to kind of keep us on the surface as we got to open some doors to possibility of spaces that we can go into deeper, but really holding to this kind of opening space, opening to, what does it really look and feel like to find ourselves standing on our own embodied ground, and to ask ourselves how much we are willing at any point in time to open our awareness, open our consciousness to those things in life that can be challenging, and challenging being a very broad word. Again, kind of keeping us here on the surface, just dipping our toe into those darker realms that can go quite deep. And instead of diving into that second half of the podcast that I recorded, again, I think I'm going to cut us off for today to keep us here, to really allow this space that we immersed ourselves in today to can percolate, to move through you. And in these next few episodes coming up, to give us more space, more time to play around in this territory that I've set up for us. Yes, on one side of things, being this dark side of humanity, this dark side that exists in everybody, truly exists in everyone, and exists in varying degrees depending on the time, the situation, etc., etc. And also that other side of the coin, the other side of the pendulum swing, being the light, the joy, those feel-good feelings that I've decided I'm going to take you into in next week's podcast. I've already recorded most of that podcast, so I know where I'm going to take you. And I think this is where we get to spend a little bit of time, or maybe a lot of time, seeing how things unfold, really playing in this territory of where are we putting our consciousness in those dark, challenging parts of life? And if so, how deep are we willing and able to go in a particular moment? Or are we choosing to put our attention in those light-filled spaces? So again, just really setting up some territory for us to work in these upcoming weeks. Oh my gosh, if you are still here with me all the way through the very end, I am so happy and honored to have you here. I truly, deeply, from my depths, thank you so much for joining me here today. If there's something that spoke to you, moved you, invoked something in you, and you think that sharing can really support the community, I invite you to share that with me. Maybe share it in our Instagram community. We have a brand new Facebook community that is going to launch the same day as this podcast. There's a version of this that shows up on YouTube, so you can always put comments there. I have so many different spaces for us to start to share as a community. Again, as much fun as I have sitting over here alone in a quiet room, speaking whatever words want to flow through me, this works so much better if the communication happens in multiple directions. Okay, friends. And yes, it's decided. I'm going to use that word, friends. Time to sign off here. Once more, I thank you so much for listening today, and I look forward to bringing you next week's conversation, a conversation again where we get to swing the pendulum over into the world of light, the world of joy. Both sides, the full length of the spectrum, deserves a space in our human lives. Okay, I'll catch you next time.